Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're wading into, well, the fascinating and frankly often unsettling world of Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. This book, it's often called a strategic masterpiece, but let me tell you, its unapologetic approach to power dynamics, it definitely sparks some intense debate.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a book I think many of us have probably heard of, maybe even own, but perhaps haven't really, unpacked.
Exactly. And at its core, Greene's work is really rooted in real politics.
Yeah.
That perspective that sees the world not as we wish it was, but maybe as it actually is.
Right.
He argues that power isn't just some abstract thing for boardrooms or governments. It's fundamental.
Yeah.
It's an ever-present force in all human interaction, whether we like it or not, or even notice it.
So our mission for this deep dive then is to explore the blueprint of this book, maybe get into some of its most, let's say, provocative laws.
Yes, some definitely are.
Understand its surprisingly wide impact, and also tackle the strong criticisms it seems to always face. So by the end, you'll hopefully have a clearer picture of why the 48 Laws of Power is still such a huge bestseller decades later, and what it really offers anyone curious about human behavior and influence.
Sounds good.
Okay. So, how does Greene actually build this controversial guide? Let's look at the blueprint itself, the 48 Laws of Power. This came out back in 1998, right?
That's right, 1998. And it's a substantial book, around 452 pages.
Yeah, it's hefty.
And it kind of crosses genres, It's part self-help, part strategy, some even say philosophy.
Interesting mix.
And the structure is genuinely unique. I think that's a big part of why it's lasted. Each of the 48 laws gets its own chapter.
Okay.
And within each chapter, you get the law's interpretation, sure, but critically, it's backed by historical examples, both successful uses.
Right, how it worked.
And just as important, like disastrous failures.
Yeah.
When it went wrong.
So you see both sides.
Exactly. And what's often missed, but it's really crucial, is Greene includes a reversal for each law.
A reversal. What do you mean?
Basically, guidance on when not to apply it, suggesting there's a deeper strategic thinking needed beyond just blindly following the rule. It's not just blunt force.
Oh, okay. So it's more nuanced than just do this.
Precisely.
And you mentioned historical examples. That tapestry seems incredibly rich.
Oh, it is. Every law is backed up with real stories, real people. Think Machiavelli, Sun Tzu.
The classic strategists.
Yeah, but also monarchs like Louis XIV, Queen Elizabeth I.
Yeah.
Even showmen like P.T. Barnum.
Really?
Absolutely. And military figures like Napoleon, political giants like Julius Caesar. It's this incredible range.
So it's less a dry history lesson?
Way less. It's more like a practical demonstration of power plays, across different times and different fields.
Okay, that makes sense. So we got the structure down. Let's dive into some of the actual laws, the principles themselves. This is where I think it gets really interesting.
Yes, definitely. Let's start with maybe the most famous one. Law 1. Never outshine the master.
Okay. What's the core idea there? Don't look too good.
Well, it's a bit more subtle than that. It's not just about, dimming your own light. It's about strategically making your success seem connected to your superior's success.
Ah, so they feel part of it.
Exactly. You subtly amplify their power, which in turn secures your own position. Greene uses the example of Nicolas Fouquet, Louis XIV's finance minister.
What happened?
He built this incredibly lavish chateau, way grander than the king's own place at the time. Big mistake.
Oh.
Yeah, Louis XIV saw it as a direct challenge, basically. Fouquet was arrested, imprisoned for life. A stark lesson, Greene says, in the danger of making the master feel insecure.
Wow. Okay, that's a powerful start. Then there's law 2. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. That one. It feels almost cynical, doesn't it?
It does sound harsh. Greene isn't necessarily saying be cynical about friendship, but perhaps adopt a cold realism.
Realism how?
The law suggests that, the emotional ties of friendship can actually blind you. Friends might betray you out of envy or sudden emotion.
Whereas
Enemies, driven by clear self-interest, might actually be more reliable allies, or at least pawns, in a calculated situation. You know what motivates them.
So it's about understanding motivations, not necessarily ditching your friends.
Exactly. Understanding the potential pitfalls, whatever the relationship.
Okay, interesting. And law 3, conceal your intentions. That seems more straightforwardly strategic.
It's about keeping people off balance. If they don't know your real goal, they can't prepare, they can't counter you effectively. Ambiguity is an advantage.
I'm guessing.
Pretty much. Then, kind of the opposite in a way, is law 4. Court attention at all costs.
So be seen.
Be seen. Visibility equals power in this view. Even negative attention is better than being ignored. Obscurity for Greene is like the ultimate weakness.
Controversial, but you can see the logic in some fields.
Definitely. And then there's one of the more chilling ones. Law 5. Crush your enemy. Totally.
Oof. That sounds brutal. What's the justification there?
The rationale is purely pragmatic, if ruthless. Leaving an enemy partially defeated, or allowing them space to recover.
Means they might come back for revenge later.
Exactly. Greene argues leaving no chance for retaliation is the only way to prevent future threats. Half measures just invite more conflict down the line.
But the potential costs, moral or otherwise.
Oh, huge. Greene sort of lays out the strategy, the real politic calculation, but the moral weighing. That's largely left to you, the reader. He focuses on the effectiveness for securing power.
A stark choice, for sure. Okay, jumping ahead a bit. Law 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew. This sounds manipulative.
It really does. And this is one that draws a lot of fire. It's about finding people's weaknesses, their insecurities, their hidden needs.
To control them.
That's the implication that worries people. Greene would likely argue understanding weaknesses isn't just for exploitation, though. It could be about leverage in negotiations, predicting behavior, or even knowing what topics to avoid to maintain a relationship.
A slightly more charitable reading, perhaps.
Perhaps. But the potential for misuse is obviously high.
And finally, let's touch on Law 48. Assume formlessness. This sounds almost philosophical.
It kind of is. It's about adaptability. Being fluid, unpredictable like water. If you're formless, you can't be grasped, you can't be pinned down, you can't be easily defeated. Adaptability is the ultimate strength.
So, looking at these, you can see a pattern, right? They aim to be practical tactics, sometimes quite ruthless tactics, for getting and keeping power.
Pure strategy, really, but with these deep, often uncomfortable implications about human nature.
Now, let's shift gears slightly. The book's popularity, it's immense. A bestseller for decades. Over 1.2 million copies sold just in the US. That's huge.
It really is. And what's fascinating isn't just the numbers, but the breadth of who's reading it. It often defies expectations.
Yeah, you'd expect maybe entrepreneurs, CEOs, military types, politicians.
And they definitely read it. But its influence goes way beyond that in some surprising areas.
Right, like pop culture, especially hip hop. You hear artists reference it.
Yeah.
And didn't 50 Cent actually co-author a book with Greene?
He did indeed, The 50th Law. Sort of a modern companion piece, applying these ideas through his own life story. That collaboration really highlighted its cultural reach.
So it has this broad appeal, but also significant controversy. You mentioned the impact. And part of that is negative, right? Like it being banned in prisons.
Yes, that's a key point. Some prison systems have banned the 48 Laws of Power. The fear is inmates using it to manipulate guards or each other.
Wow.
That fact alone speaks volumes about the perceived power, the perceived danger of the book's ideas when put into practice, which feeds directly into the criticisms.
Okay, let's tackle those criticisms head on. It's often called manipulative, cynical, morally ambiguous.
Definitely.
Some critics have gone so far as to call it, what, a manual for sociopaths? That's pretty strong language.
Extremely strong. The argument is that it essentially encourages, or at least normalizes, a ruthless, amoral way of navigating the world. It paints a very cutthroat picture.
And the defense. What do proponents say?
The main counter-argument is, well, maybe the world is often like that, whether we admit it or not. So it's essential to understand these power dynamics, these games people play.
Even if you don't play them yourself.
Especially then. The idea is you need to recognize these tactics to defend yourself, to avoid being manipulated or becoming a victim. It's about awareness, not necessarily endorsement.
So the argument isn't you should do this, but you need to know this happens.
That's the crux of the defense. It raises that big question. Does knowing how manipulation works make you more likely to use it, or just better prepared against it?
Which brings us to the practical side. So what does this all mean for you listening right now, beyond just, an interesting chat about a famous book?
Well, practically speaking, engaging with this book, even if you disagree with parts of it, can seriously sharpen your understanding of human nature, why people do what they do.
Seeing the motivations behind the actions.
Exactly. And that knowledge can be incredibly valuable. Navigating work politics, understanding social dynamics, even spotting manipulation attempts in your own life.
So it's like learning the rules of a game, maybe a game you don't want to play but need to understand to get by.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
It can teach you how to defend yourself.
Huh.
The key takeaway isn't necessarily becoming a master manipulator, But gaining that informed awareness, understanding the dynamics, is powerful in itself, regardless of how you choose to act.
Right. It's about understanding the terrain.
Precisely.
Okay, so that's where we'll wrap up our deep dive into the 48 laws of power. The core idea, as Greene presents it, remains. Power is fundamental. It's unavoidable in human interaction. And understanding its mechanics, its laws, is potentially a very potent form of knowledge.
Which leaves us with a final thought, maybe something provocative for you to consider. Given these insights, these sometimes uncomfortable truths about how power operates, does understanding these laws ultimately make you more susceptible to cynicism and manipulation yourself? Or does it actually make you more resilient, better equipped to navigate the world ethically and effectively?
And maybe, what will you actually do with this deepened understanding of human nature? Something to think about.